Okay, in today's episode of Throttle Stop Garage, the final episode of building the English wheel. Stay tuned. Okay, so after almost a 2-month wait, we now have parts. Powder got held up at the border. We couldn't get, it's Canada. Again, Americans, you have no idea. So, what we're going to do, even though we're right in the middle of doing other things, I'd like to say I did this well, but I don't. I like to finish one project at a time. So let's get going. We're going to get the top part of the English wheel put together. It doesn't need to go on the frame. The frame is here, and you can see I've selected the blue. So we went with the blue. It wasn't exactly the blue that I picked. So it ended up a little bit close to sort of Princess Auto blue. It's a little darker than that. It won't show up very well on camera, but it'll probably look brighter. Anyway, the idea was to actually have it with a bit of texture and a matte finish. I thought that would look really cool, but it ended up that, again, we couldn't get powder from Prismatic right now, so we'll figure it out. And it is what it is. I kind of like it. I don't mind it at all, so I think it looks good. And the quality of the work has been excellent so far. It's a guy that just does this also out of his garage. I gotta say, again, we don't really have any professional powder coaters. Everyone here, it's a side gig. But if you find yourself somebody who actually cares, they can do excellent work. So I've been super happy with the pile of parts that I've looked at so far. So let's get it going. We're gonna put it together. I'm not too sure if it's going to need the shim that we had in it before in the quill to tighten that up. And you'll sort of see it all come together when we're done. And then this is where that rondelle was meant for, right? So if you've tuned in to watch the metal embossing video, that's what the rondelle was for. So that rondelle is going to sit sort of centered on the front, I think, of the whole contraption. And we'll get that put on. And then we'll call it done. We'll get a cover made for it quickly, and it's going to just sit in the corner of the shop. I don't want it to collect dust and dirt, and we're going to keep the wheels off of it most of the time unless I need them. And there's one last thing that we're going to do also in this video, just sort of clean things up. A lot of people use a rubber tire or something just to get bending, no stretching, for an upper wheel. And I happen to find a urethane wheel that's the right size and the right dimensions. So if you're interested, again, you'll have to find them on your own. I got this one out of a smaller company in Canada, so I kind of doubt that, it's probably a generic part, but that's up to you. I'm not going to list part numbers, but you can find an 8-inch by 3-inch urethane wheel. It has a cast iron core, and I just took it to a local machine shop, had them bore it out to fit some bearings in that are exactly the right size. So that's going to be excellent for an upper tire. Okay, so let's get rolling, get this stuff put together, and we'll have a little bit of fun. Having not seen any of these parts for several months, I have to admit that even though I did design all this myself, I wasn't exactly sure how it went all back together. I had a rough idea, but there was a little bit of head scratching going on at the start. So I did put witness marks on all the parts to show which way and which direction they were in. And yeah, the powder coat, it wasn't so thick that I couldn't see them, so that was good. And then all the piles of screws and things that have to go together. And yeah, the holes, well, some of them, the threaded holes especially, I was a little disappointed that they didn't get a silicone plug put in them. So they were a bit of a mess and needed to get the taps out and sort all those out and get them cleaned up. And then it starts to sort of go together. You figure out, all right, there's a set screw and that goes in that hole, and this set screw goes in this hole, and eventually you start kind of crawling in. There's the other holes, right? Not cleaned out. 2 seconds with some silicone plugs and that's solved, right? So a little bit extra work, and everyone hates extra work, but it's cathartic. So you're just starting to put these things together, and then I started noticing that the powder was just flaking off these parts. So it was bad. So I put them together, and as soon as I would tighten up the fastener, the powder would just shear straight off. So I'm like, it didn't cure properly, it wasn't prepped properly, something was wrong. So I continued to assemble the quill, and then I got frustrated with bits and pieces. So at first I thought, well, we'll see how it fits. A little bit of lithium grease on the sides of the slides, and in it goes.
All right, so I'm like, okay, there's no shim in there. You can see the shim still sitting over on the left-hand side, bolted together. Yeah, that works fine. It seemed great. So I'm like, well, let's put the shim in anyway, just to be a frustrating person. Well, I put both shims in at the start. I couldn't get it any further. Like I could get it in, but then I had to figure out how to get that thing back out. It didn't want to come out. There was no way. So I'm like, wow, okay, that's a bit tight. Take one shim out. Try it again. No, all the shims have to come out. So it worked perfect. I can't calculate a mil thickness. I wasn't doing the application of the powder. So you put it all in, and then all you do with if you're going to copy the design is you just make sure you just get the plastic pieces centered. Okay, so then a little bit of lube, some little high pressure grease, pack that bearing nicely, and then the bushing goes in. Now that bushing is ever so slightly longer than the hub that it goes into, and that's so the collar doesn't rub against the hub, and it's so the other collar on the other side for the bearing doesn't rub against the hub. So both of those things, I mean, it's important that you pay attention to every detail I put into this. Now we bang the rest of it together, literally. It fits nice and tight. If you need a little hammer to tap at home, that's a good sign for any machine. And anyway, as I'm tightening it up, I shattered the paint there too on that top plate. So I'm thinking there was a problem with these plates. Now, that's the little ball screw that I haven't put in. It's a ball stop, and it fits into it. It snaps into the grooves that are on the bottom plate. So I just Loctited it in place, carefully get it fitted up. It turned out to not be an issue, but the powder had to all go back. So I had to take it all apart, and the cover plates and the other pieces, they just weren't done properly. Took them back, and the guy did them right away. Actually, I had them the next morning, so no problems there. And I just reassembled everything. This time, didn't matter what I did with the screws. It didn't hurt a thing. He figures it was a problem in the cure cycle. I don't powder coat. I'm going to learn, though, I can tell you, because I'm getting frustrated enough with trying to get people to do work for me that I've got a little oven and a little setup, and I'm going to do some of the smaller parts myself. And we'll see if we can't make a mess of them. Anyway, so here's that yoke part going together. It was nice that this didn't need to be sided. I didn't have any marks on it. It just, whichever way you put it in is the right way. I just put the shaft in to make sure the pieces are going to remain sort of perpendicular as you tighten them up. It's not necessary, but it's fine. And then the last part of that shaft was fitting the key. So I put a keyway in, and it goes into the hub, and I wanted to very carefully fit that so it's like a perfect fit, a frustratingly long perfect fit. There's no way I'm showing all of the footage for that. I took half of it out. No one cares. Spend time on your machines to make sure they fit just the way you want them. I'm a little particular. If you've watched the channel for a while, it's not news to anyone. It's not OCD. It's just the way I hate it if I touch something and it doesn't work right, because it's never going to get any better. I'm finally happy with it all. The head goes on the rest of the frame, lickety split. That's the part that can come on and off as many times as I like. Whenever I move this thing up onto the bench where it's going to get used onto my welding table where it'll get bolted down, then I will take the head off, because it's like half of the weight of the machine in total is in that head. So it's heavy. Last step. Can we get this centered and right where I want it?
Okay, so that's the urethane wheel. Again, with the bearings in it for a 3/4 inch shaft. Right, that'll make it whiz around and go real nice. Exactly how I wanted it. Just slide it right in on the key, presses home perfectly. This is going to be a lot of fun to play with. So for permanent operation, we're just going to attach the one set screw over on the other side, and that's more than enough to hold this in place. Finding the hole is just so nice. Okay, so that's the wheel project done. Next on the wheel project, we're going to start in and learn how to wheel panels. It's not what we're going to do the very next, because we still have a car to build, so we can't be playing around all the time. But the learning never stops here at Throttle Stop Garage. All right, thanks for tuning in. Again, like, subscribe, keep the algorithm happy, and keep your stick on the ice. Catch you on the next one.